You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
Once again, everyone, and thank you for joining us for another exciting episode of Truth, Justice, and the New England Pro Wrestling Way. I am your host, Matt Spectro, a.k.a. Tarzan Taylor, and as always, I'm here with my fellow host. He's a former NWA On Fire heavyweight champion, and a man who doesn't like to read books, Julian Starr.
What's going on, everyone? I don't understand that, like, why you had to bring that up. Like, I don't like to read books. Is it a fun fact? Yeah, I haven't read a book since, like, middle school, maybe kindergarten. I can read the same sentence 4 times, and then all of a sudden I get bored and I'm lost.
I know you've read a book since kindergarten.
Yeah, maybe middle school, but I don't think I actually read any books in high school. I just read backflaps and then make up my own story in my head.
Well, speaking of reading, we're here on episode 8. The back to school episode.
Boo.
Pretty exciting. All those kids out there starting new, going back to school, another exciting school year.
You know who's not excited? Claudia. She absolutely wants nothing to do with school. Claudia is my girlfriend Susanna's daughter. School sucks. I never liked it. It's the reason why I never went to college. I hate school settings. So I feel bad for kids that have to go back to school.
Well, a little bit, but we are the premier podcast that speaks only of the subject of professional wrestling in the New England area. And you want to give us also a little bit of a, what our episode is all, well, not our episode, our show, what our show is all about.
So you want me to describe what the show's about?
I would love that.
Well, this podcast is about trying to get the truth. People in professional wrestling tend to be a bit too political, a bit too friendly. Well, Truth, Justice, and the New England Pro Wrestling Way is looking to break that mold. As Tarzan and I sit down with various guests discussing multiple topics, but trying to gain the point of the truth. We will dig, we will probe, no matter how uncomfortable it may become. We will be sure to deliver truth, justice, and the New England Pro Wrestling Way.
All right, at the beginning, I always tend to... We get a little bit of philosophical discussion before we go into this week's topic.
Do we? Yeah, and then you derail it because you love structure and try to get back on track.
The last 2 episodes have been, I wouldn't say they've been negative, but they've been a lot of burials going on lately.
Are you saying burials or burials?
I don't know the pronunciation, but...
So you're saying people are getting buried?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. So you're saying there was a lot of controversy?
I don't know if I'd call it controversy, but definitely... some negative things being said. So we're going to start off with a little positive thing. I know in general I do feel the wrestling environment can be pretty toxic, but let's just list a few positive things about professional wrestling, especially here in New England. You want me to go first?
Yes.
Well, all right, let's look at this. I mean, we lived a dream. I mean, yeah, granted our career wasn't wrestling. We're not ultra successful in the world of wrestling, but we got to live a dream of being professional wrestlers, even on a small scale in some way. We got to entertain people. And thanks to the internet, there's people probably all over the world that might have seen some of our stuff. How many people can say that, even on some small level, they lived their dream as a child?
That I can agree with. I never actually had a dream of going to WWE. That was always a goal, but never a dream. My dream was strictly to become a professional wrestler. And you're right. I got to live that dream. So in that sense, I can, say that that's a positive aspect of professional wrestling. We can say that, realistically, compare it to movies, music, every form of entertainment, there's nothing like professional wrestling because it's a little bit of everything. It's good music, it's good entertainment, it's good drama, it's good action. It's got everything and more. And then just like wrestling fans are different than any other kind of fan. It almost feels... It was something, I forgot what it was exactly, but there was something that came up this past weekend or this past week that made me actually discuss it with Susanna about like what people say when they say that wrestling's a family. I forgot exactly what it was, and I wish I could remember, but there was something that happened that I said, that's what they mean by professional wrestling becoming a family. In a sense, I know it's a independent world, and I know we're all looking for our individual careers, but in the long run, it's because you're all doing it together, it feels like a fairly family-oriented situation. So
I don't know if it's a positive, what you just described, but it's something.
it can feel like a positive, especially for people who don't really have a lot of people in their life.
I'm going to call bullshit that you grew up not wanting to be in the WWF. There's nobody who grew up watching it that didn't dream of being there.
I wanted to be there, but it wasn't like it wasn't my dream. Like, my dream wasn't like I need to be in WWE. I just always wanted to be a professional wrestler. Once I became a professional wrestler, my ultimate goal was to get to WWE. I didn't care about Ring of Honor. I actually never even liked Ring of Honor. I didn't care about any other promotions. I wanted to go to WWE specifically. That was my number one goal, is to make a living off of professional wrestling. But my ultimate goal was just to be a wrestler. So, like, that's why I don't feel sad that I'm not wrestling anymore, because I did live my dream, and I'm actually not regretting walking away. I don't feel like I'm missing out on much.
And I have made some long-lasting friendships because of professional wrestling, people I'm still friends with to this day, including yourself.
Yeah. Oh, we're friends?
That I never would have made if it wasn't for wrestling. And finally, I mean, there's this podcast. I mean, this is creatively one of the most satisfying things I've got to do, because good or bad, failure, success, I have no one to blame but myself if it's not that way. And I'm really enjoying doing this so far.
I'm having a blast with this, and it's weird because me doing a podcast, I wasn't much of a talker in wrestling. I think I was more of a talker outside the ring. I like to run my mouth in the wrong ways, but I didn't think doing a podcast would ever be in my future. But I agree with you, my man. Wrestling is something we're both passionate about. Wrestling's actually given us a platform or a subject to talk about, and now we have something creative that we can do that'll satisfy our boring lives.
And I hope everyone out there listening enjoys listening as much as we enjoy recording.
As a matter of fact, they do. I'm hearing a lot of great feedback, especially after episode 7.
All right.
It's people are starting to enjoy it. They like the nature of the podcast being a little more towards the truth, and it doesn't feel like we're trying to pull punches. It doesn't feel like we're trying to be political, as we've talked about. It feels like we're really, hammering home what people think that just some people are too afraid to say.
All right. I just want to address something that happened recently. We here at the Truth, Justice, and the New England Pro Wrestling Way, we invited one Buddy Romano to be on our show, but he had said that he would not come on the show until I apologized for reading his Facebook post and mocking him. Well, I just want to address Buddy. There's an open invitation. You can come on the show anytime, but I want to be crystal clear. Never in 1,000 years will you ever get an apology out of me for that. Ever. I will profess my love for Tom Brady before I ever apologize. So we would love to have you on the show, buddy, but the condition is no apology.
I tried to talk to him about it, and I tried to just be the middleman here and state that there was no really reason to be mad at it, or that he should. I mean, everyone has their free right to feel how they feel, so I'm not saying his feelings are wrong, but I told him it was just he thought it was a little ridiculous to say that you draw heats and houses, and he said it was his right to decline. So
he said it, not me.
Well, I know, but what he's saying is he feels it's a slightly disrespectful for you to to chuckle at something he said and then ask him to face him face to face and act like you like him.
I just want us to say here at the new Truth, Justice, New England Pro Wrestling Way, we would love to still have him on the show.
I agree, and I told him that. I'd love to have him on the show. But no apology from Tarzan Taylor.
None.
All right.
And on that note, we're going to get to this week's topic. Since it is the back to school episode, we thought what better to do than to talk about wrestling schools and what goes into running a wrestling school. You should know because you are a trainer at a wrestling school.
Well, I don't know what it takes to run a wrestling school. I know what it takes to be a trainer. You have to show up and tell people what to do. It's great.
And on that note, we're going to introduce our guest this week. He is a former Chaotic Heavyweight Champion, a former NECW Heavyweight Champion, a former Chaotic Wrestling New England Champion, a former Chaotic Wrestling Tag Team Champion, a former NECW Tag Team Champion, a former Liberty States Heavyweight Champion, a former NWA On Fire Heavyweight Champion, a former All-Star Wrestling Action Rocket Weight Champion, and a former WFA Heavyweight Champion. He's the co-owner of Chaotic Wrestling and the owner of the New England Pro Wrestling Academy. Ladies and gentlemen, the Firebrand, Brian Fury.
That was a hell of an introduction. You're pretty good at that.
I almost lost my breath. So we're going to get into it.
Okay.
Running a wrestling school.
Very excited, very nervous. Here we go. This is quite the podcast to be on.
There's nothing to be nervous about. We're going to talk to you about the wrestling school.
This isn't a got you moment.
Yeah, unless...
You're not going to hear good brother, are you? All right, so we're going to talk about... It's going to be kind of a double-edged sword. Well, that's not really the right phrase. We're going to talk about two things, specifically the New England Pro Wrestling Academy, but also just talk about wrestling schools.
Cool.
In general. We're going to give a little background, softball it up at the beginning. The New England Pro Wrestling Academy is on 100 Belmont Street in Andover, Massachusetts, if I'm not mistaken.
True. All right. That is a softball question. Here we go.
And
See, this is easy.
just start off with how the New England Pro Wrestling Academy came to be in your possession.
All right. So Jamie kind of alluded to it a little bit on the first episode. I was a trainer at the school one night a week. It was myself, Brian Malonis, and Todd Hansen, Warbeard, Ivar, Duke of Elegance, whatever the hell name he's going by right now. And Jamie basically realized kind of like when push came to shove, if something were to happen, there's nothing that he could do himself to kind of train and teach people. So Malonis was getting ready to have his daughter. Todd was starting to travel a little bit more and do some different things. And honestly, Todd, as we all know, wasn't necessarily the most smart with finances and things along those lines. So I was like the guy that Jamie kind of came to and talked to about possibly becoming the owner and successor and whatnot. And then I expressed to him that I would love to do something like that, but I also had a lot of fears and worries about finances and whatnot. And so when I took over, Jamie was kind of still there, silent partner / not really a partner at all, just in case there were issues monetarily or things along those lines, because I was just, working, some random job in wrestling and stuff. I didn't have like money in case something broke or I couldn't pay bills or money didn't come in. So I needed all these different, I needed assurance there that if something were to happen, that type of thing would be covered, because I just had nothing really at all going into it.
Would you say this is something you wanted to do? Like if Jamie had never said, like, I'm going to a problem where I needed it, would you have actively said, hey, I want to have a wrestling school?
Well, I loved training on my one night a week there. I really enjoyed it a lot. And I always wanted to be ingrained in professional wrestling in one way or another, whether it was my career or teaching or running a promotion or something along those lines. I always wanted to have it there. So it was a goal of mine. I don't know if I would have just started something from scratch per se, but yeah, it was always in the back of my head because I really enjoyed doing the training thing, and I thought that kind of almost falling into my lap was like a blessing in disguise, for lack of a better term.
Julian, you have a particular insight on this topic because you are actually a trainer at the New England Pro Wrestling Academy.
Nope, I got nothing. I'm totally kidding. I mean, being a trainer it's weird just because everything that was taught to me is now being, like, I'm actually teaching other people, and Brian kind of laughs halfway through training because it's the same stuff I preached to him, that he preached to me, and but I'll be honest, I don't really know too much about like being in the school or I don't know the finances of it. I know very little, actually. I'm very much just like, I come in, I do my job, I go home. That's it. I don't try to pry. I don't want to know anything. Well, now I do, but at the time, like while I'm there, I don't try to figure out like how's the business going or anything like that. I do have questions about it, which I'll ask today. But other than that, like, I don't know. It's hard to give any like real insight. I mean,
well, I think we have to go into a little bit, not just about your school, but how wrestling has been trained over the years. If we all, obviously we weren't around, but if we've, well, not Julian because he doesn't like to read books, but you and I have read enough books and seen enough shoot interviews, at a time it wasn't so easy to, hey, I'm going to go to a wrestling school and I'm going to sign up. It was, a lot of times you had to know someone or you had to be like a legit athletic background to even get considered to be trained. And that's changed over the years.
Yeah, back in the day, it was very much an inside business, and you couldn't just kind of wrestling schools weren't advertised anywhere, or it wasn't like an open thing.
I remember being a kid, and Killer Kowalski School was the only one and that was because it was in Pro Wrestling Illustrated.
Yeah, that one, and I think AFA. I think his was one that I had heard of or known about for whatever reason. But those are the two that, when I was younger, I always kind of heard about or knew about just because of who they were, probably, and they weren't afraid to kind of advertise that. But yeah, you read all the books and all this other stuff, and people driving, first of all, they got to write letters to get in and or know somebody, or they're only training before shows, or if you're Jerry Lawler, you're never trained at all.
But I mean, to your advantage today, I mean, they couldn't have a website or a Facebook saying, hey, come to my school. So I would assume, I mean, it's changed a lot, but then it was more like, I don't think they were in it to make money as much. I don't know. Maybe they made more money from getting someone who got there, but they didn't have so many students coming in back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, that's hard to say. I don't know. I think in the old days, you hear a lot of stories about how people had deals with their students where, hey, if you make it to WWE and get a contract, for the first 2 years, I'll get 5% or something along those lines. So I think on the back end of things like that is where a lot of those types of places maybe made their money back in the day. But I'm not really sure.
That would make sense why they wanted guys with legit athletic backgrounds and whatnot.
I should have done something like that. That'd have been great.
And eventually, over time, it's kind of evolved to what it is today. Now, to be clear to anyone who doesn't know, it was the Chaotic Training Center before you took it over.
Yep.
Would you say when you came aboard that you made a bunch of sweeping changes to the way they did business or did their training?
I wouldn't say. Well, at the time, it was a little in flux. When I came in as a trainer, it was in flux because Hollow was kind of left. Just in a lurch, but then he came back, and then he left again, and then John Walters was kind of there as a trainer, but that didn't really work out or last, and so me, Todd, and Malonis were there for a good period of time as the three trainers, and then, like I said, when Jamie saw that their interest was waning in different things, and it took over, it was just kind of it was just left to me, all right, here we go, so there wasn't I kicked anybody out or anything. It was just, all right, I was originally there, just myself all 3 days, and then, gradually started bringing people in that I knew that I could trust with different things. I made the decision to utilize both rings and separate the beginners from the more advanced people, because for me, when I was training there, that was always a frustration. I'm an advanced guy and I want to be doing this stuff, but I got to sit around for 20 minutes while these new students learn hip tosses, and I just kind of stand there and twiddle my thumbs and whatever else. So I kind of wanted to curtail that, as much as I could.
And Julian, you were still training at the time he took over?
I was.
Would you say, from a guy with, from your perspective, was there a sweeping change when the mantle was passed to one Brian Puke?
Yeah or no. There was a change in... how do I explain this? I guess a lot of people were kind of fired up when it first happened, because Brian, as everyone knows, was trained by, Lobsterman, then Mofo Steve Radley, and so on and so forth. And so he had a different eye for wrestling than Malonis and Todd did. Warbeard. Whatever you want to call him. Ivar. So he had a different eye for wrestling. And so when you trained with Malonis and Todd, where they would be slightly different, they were very much the same, because it was the same training that Hollow gave them. When you trained with Brian, it was just a completely different eye for wrestling, and it was a different way to attack things and a different way to look at things. So when he came in, I think I remember it was an announcement at a Chaotic show.
It was at a Woburn show beforehand. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, there was a big announcement. I might have known beforehand because I had the inside.
You might have. I don't remember if I told too many people or not, but
yeah.
It was. I kept it fairly close to the chest.
But yeah, I just remember everyone was kind of excited because now it wasn't going to be. And this isn't a shot at Ivar. This isn't a shot at Brian Malonis. This isn't a shot at Mike Hollow. I enjoyed their training. I thank them for their training, and I think their training speaks volumes. It helped me so much throughout my career. But you were about to get a different style of training, and I think everyone was excited to see the changes and how in-depth it was going to become, and to kind of just they were really curious to see where the direction was going with the school. So there was a lot of excitement.
Would you say there's any pushback because you weren't a chaotic homegrown guy?
No.
That you were taking over the school?
Yeah, no, not at all. And actually, part of my thing of renaming it and everything else was to kind of get it away from chaotic and make it its own entity. And even though nowadays I own both, I still want the New England Pro Wrestling Academy to kind of be its own entity. I run them as two separate things. It's just me at the school running everything, and it's me and my partner at Chaotic, and I didn't rename it the Chaotic Training Center 2 or anything along those lines. Like, I want my students to be able to wrestle and train anywhere versus it just being like a feeding ground just for Chaotic. Along the lines of what Julian said, I think Todd and Malonis were great at those fundamentals and foundation. I think that's because that was what was hammered home so much from Hollow, and Hollow didn't really understand advanced wrestling psychology. And I think, as you know, Tarzan, like, that's what Steve really was able to bring to the table more than anything else, and I was able to teach that in a very different way. So Thursday nights was like a big night for them to kind of learn what the hell, like all kinds of different stuff, versus, Tuesday is very much footwork, and Todd will do matches and fun stuff on Saturday, but it wouldn't be as much of an in-depth thing on like psychology and stuff that I would do on Thursdays.
Now, if you remember, and Julian, you might not, because Brian and I have been around longer than you, in the early 2000s, the big criticism of Chaotic was it was robotic wrestling.
Robotic wrestling,
Everybody was robotic. That was the big criticism. Would you say that, first of all, do you think there's any truth to that? And number two, did you say that you made any kind of active movement to change that when you took over the school?
Big thing that's on the board at the school. First thing, take what you know, make it your own. Hollow was very much like, you got to put your left foot here, and you got to put your right foot here, and your arm goes here. And everybody would have to do everything the exact same way. And so because of that, so many people came out looking and acting the same. They might have different characters in life, but they were all very much, hey, here's our shine. And you could see like 3 or 4 in a row that were very similar or the same type of thing. They would just take drills that they would do and put it in. And it was a big thing for me to kind of change that and make everybody individuals. And yes, this is how you learn something, but that's just so you understand and you're not thinking about it. Then you make it your own. As long as you're feeding the correct way and you're putting this here and doing that, like, then you can kind of add your own little flair and oomph to it. To me, that was always one of the coolest parts of wrestling, was taking that and then, I could do it like this, or I could take it like that, and things along those lines. Like, so, I mean, yeah, there was always, the robotic wrestling. There was like, you could tell who was trained by Bob, you could tell who was trained by Steve, you could tell that was like a big thing for a long period of time in New England wrestling.
And would you say any of your own training, either by Lobsterman or by Steve Bradley, you incorporated into your training of other people?
I mean, I yell and scream a lot like Steve. I've curtailed that a lot over the past couple of years. I've kind of calmed down and learned to take people as individuals instead of wipe one big broad stroke and expect everybody to react the same way to everything. For better or worse, I'm a little nicer to some people and others. But the Jeff thing is weird because I wasn't actually trained by Jeff. I was trained kind of like all the guys that were going there at the time. It wasn't like Jeff was really around much. It was more Rip was kind of there, and so it's different. But and I've done seminars and different things with different people. But yeah, I'm very similar to Steve, I guess you could say.
I think people are. I think the students at the school right now don't realize how lucky they have it to know that you have pulled back a lot. Do you have any reason why you genuinely pulled back? I mean, and this is, like you said, it's a broad stroke to think that everyone's like me, and so the way you trained was very drill sergeant-esque, and to me, I always took everything you said as, if this sucked, I took it as motivation. I was like, all right, well, I'm going to prove you wrong, fucker.
Which is good. I love that, and I know, and I'm now able to see who can take things that way and who can't. Like, if I said something like that to Sarah, you know how she is.
Yes.
It wouldn't work.
Break apart.
I'm drill sergeant-like, and I'm like that when it comes to blow-up drills, and we're doing this and that. I'm just like, all right, motherfucker, let's go. And fucking stop dragging your feet, fat ass, or this or whatever else. But when it comes time to the criticism on the wrestling and stuff, I have to kind of take each individual person and do it a little bit. It was different things throughout the years I've done it, and honestly, the first time I was down at the Performance Center kind of really changed my eyes on a lot of different things, and it's weird. That place is like... It's the most positive, nice environment I've ever been in when it comes to professional wrestling ever. And I think it really opened my eyes to be able to not always have to be a complete asshole jerk. But if you ask the students now, they'll still say I'm mean. They just don't know how mean I used to be in comparison.
These guys, they're cuddling a bunny compared to the monster we had.
And just to be clear, you're talking about the WWE Performance
Yeah,
Center.
yeah.
Just because, in case anyone listening out there doesn't know what you're talking
Two-time guest coach down there.
Now, there's one thing I wanted to bring up before we're going to get into more. This kind of stuck in my craw a little bit, and I'm going to apologize in advance because you might have had nothing to do with this.
All right,
Tarzan, why are you reading a Fortnite?
But I was doing a little research, and I found a Tumblr review of your school.
Oh,
And this says...
Tumblr?
Tumblr.
Wow.
And it says... The New England Pro Wrestling Academy is a combination of Killer Kowalski School of Pro Wrestling and the Chaotic Training Center, which was once run by the late Steve Bradley. Has Steve Bradley even ever set foot in the New England Pro Wrestling Academy?
No.
Yeah. What? Do you have any idea where the hell this came from?
Not an idea. I don't even know. There were reviews on Tumblr. I didn't. Yeah, no
I mean,
clue.
like I said, I didn't think you had anything to do with it, but I want to know if you had any insight into how the hell that.
I think they're just kind of messing up words and trying to say that, like, because it's Killer Kowalski School and I come from Steve's, that the kind of the history of the two are coming together. But yeah, maybe it's just a poorly
written article,
poorly
or
written use
review.
of that. Yeah.
All right, so right now, it must have been a little intimidating because you're taking over a school that at that point had produced like Darren Young, had produced Fandango. What was that? Damian
Sandow.
Damian Sandow. Tommaso Ciampa had been signed at one point and was released at that point as well.
You had a large success rate, is what
They
you're
had
saying.
some success rate. They had some students that had moved on to the WWE at that point, and they weren't famous at the time. But when you took over, both Oni Lorcan and Sasha Banks were also students of the Chaotic Training Center. So
Right.
that had to have been a little bit of intimidating, I would think.
I don't think I looked at it. I don't know if I looked at it as like it's intimidating because these people came from here. I looked at it as I know what I can bring to the table and teach and help these people to be able to move on to that. And from my own side, I think I looked at it as a challenge. I looked at it as fun because I really enjoy teaching and telling stuff, and I love seeing the light bulbs go off when people finally get something. So I didn't really look at it in that point of view. But if I had, who knows, like how I would have taken it.
Would you say that you just realistically the nerves came from when you took over the school? The nerves realistically came from either I don't know if I'm going to financially keep this afloat, or if I don't know if I don't know if I'm going to be able to market this the way that Chaotic Training Center was marketed.
100%. It was difficult because we all know Jamie. He used Chaotic and the school kind of together, and so one would offset the other. And if you didn't pay your school dues, he just wouldn't pay you a Chaotic payday type of thing. And that's how it worked. And he wasn't always the best with stuff. And so I made sure I told everybody, I was like, look, I need to collect these dues. I need to be on this. I need to. I think I changed the structures of the different payment plans and gave different options and stuff for people to be able to pay and stuff. So I mean, that was by far the biggest worry for me, was all the keeping the lights on in the building and making sure the rent was paid and all that stuff. Yeah, it's not a cheap building to rent. It's pretty expensive,
That actually brings me to another question. I mean, the Chaotic Training Center started, I think, in that building. I know that Jamie had explained before the whole Kowalski being in Malden and the merger. But since the Chaotic Training Center has been there, it's never moved. Is there a reason why, seeing as you're New Hampshire's favorite son, is there a reason why you haven't moved from what you guys consider the shitty state of Mass to the great state of New Hampshire or anything? Is there a reason why you never relocated?
I think it's a great spot where it is. I think it's a big place where 2 bathrooms, an office, a separate lounge, a place big enough to have 2 rings, and there's still some other free space if I wanted to set up different things in there. I think it's easily located right off of a highway. I think it's in a very good spot, and it's in a nice area of North Andover. I don't foresee any reason to actually have to move it. I like where it's at. I think it's close to New Hampshire, like you said, so people can access it from all over the place.
Well, where you see places like the Performance Center, the WWE Performance Center and stuff like that, I mean, wouldn't you think that you could probably pull in a bigger clientele if you had a different building that you could potentially like add a gym to it and add a little more to it? So like it's like you have wrestling rings, a gym, you make it an overall facility.
That type of thing is something that I had thought of originally, but you'd have to structure rates differently, let people have access to it more, or be able to open up my time and free time to be able to be there more for people to be able to go to the gym or utilize this or utilize that. So that was like I had to weigh financials on all different levels for something like that. Like even though the school is not like expensive per se, some people have trouble paying it, or you'll see people kind of disappear after 2 months because they don't have another month's pay or a quarter. So if I was to raise those rates and include a gym and this and that and stuff, like, I think the number of people that would coming in would even be less, and it wouldn't offset, the cost of whatever to put it in there, remove it, and do things like that.
All right, and I hope this next part's not going to bore anyone, but I'm generally interested in every aspect of pro wrestling, so I think we should have a little roundtable of like just some of the stuff that would go into owning a wrestling and running a wrestling school. Not necessarily just your school, but any school in general. I mean, first, you'd have to own a ring, I would imagine.
Yes.
Get a building.
Yep.
And, I mean, right off the bat, you're talking, that's a lot of money putting in right there. If you don't already own a ring, don't have a building, plus every building has, electricity, heat, hot water,
gas,
and all that.
yep.
I mean, then after you do that, then, I mean, what would you say the next logical step? Actively trying to get students?
Yeah,
or?
well, for me, first it was like LLC, get a business license and all that stuff, get it all insured with the state of Massachusetts, and the town of North Andover does the same thing, as well as like insurance and things along those lines. So you're talking, lots of different fees and things along those lines. And then, since you're doing taxes and stuff, there's an accountant involved, so you got to pay all that stuff, as well as, all the different bills and stuff that you said. Anything that may or may not break, or something you need to have an extra rope or whatever else, like you're paying stuff on, for the rings for when things go wrong. A canvas is, $300 or $400 just for a canvas for a ring. So, I mean, I've replaced those a couple times. Nothing makes me more mad than a new canvas and rip happens like 3 weeks into it and just, what the fuck, So it's like so many different things just kind of add up here and there. And then for us, it's like, all right, I got to get trash bags. I got to get paper towels. I got to get toilet paper. I need more hand soap. We need stuff to clean. I need this and that. Like, it's
like insurance. I assume that must be.
There's all kinds
especially in Mass.
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff that I never thought about before I fucking started to do a wrestling school. You know what I mean? It was like, I knew there'd be little things here and there, but I never thought about all of it so much. And when things go wrong or things break, it's great that our landlord's been awesome. And like, there was just an incident recently where they're doing roofing work and something happened and it was a big flood like in one of the rooms. It was like, so they're in the middle of like redoing a wall and painting a wall, and they fixed a couple ceiling tiles and stuff. So that's great. But it's like, if you don't have like a great relationship with the landlord, or if you were to mess something like that up yourself, like you're paying all that stuff out of your own pocket and everything. So I mean, there's a lot to it.
So it does sound like that can be pretty taxing and, hard on you financially and mentally and whatnot. Do you think, because there's so many other schools in New England, from, Slick Wagner Browns to Top Row Pro Wrestling, do you think other schools are doing this whole thing with the LLC business deal, or do you think it's just more of own a building, own a ring, let's go?
Yeah, if they're smart, they will. I mean, it's so weird because in pro wrestling, there's... we're paid money under the table for the most part. Most places, chaotic was always and will always be like a check type of thing. Again, that's because there's an LLC involved, and we want to have, hey, these are our employees, blah, 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 so on and so forth. And so I wanted to make sure I was covered for anything, in case anything happened. Or even though we have waivers and they've been looked at by lawyers, like if somebody were to try to sue me or different things, like I have the ability to kind of have that stuff taken care of, other than huge, things weighing on me even more so than whatever else. But if they're smart, they will. I honestly don't think every place does. Like, you think about Jeff's, like I know Jeff's wasn't. I think
highly doubt it.
Yeah, I think Steve's was, at least at first. I don't know if, when Steve fell on harder times, if he was still that way. But yeah, so if they're smart, they would, just for the million and one things that can and might go wrong for them.
So I was under the impression you took care of most of this by yourself, the accounting and all that. So you have other help as far as that stuff goes?
The accountant's just for when we file taxes.
Okay.
I go, here's all my stuff, here's this and that, all the stuff I've kept track of, blah, 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 blah. And then they'll kind of do it up and, okay, here we go. Boom, boom, boom.
But money earning, all the counting, all that other stuff.
All that stuff's out,
basically everything in the back end business, all that other jazz is all you.
Yeah, I'll take care of all that stuff, yeah.
Okay.
I got to say, when we started this podcast, I wouldn't think within the first 10 episodes, we would twice be talking about accounting on a pro wrestling podcast. Then obviously you got to have trainers, because you can't be there. You have a life. You can't be there every time. You can't just cancel school if you would get sick or something like that. So you got to bring other trainers on.
Well, the thing, and it sucks that I don't make, like, school doesn't make money. I have never lost money on the school, and I never touched a dime from the school the first 4 years that I had it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until after that when I was like, I feel secure if I needed to take some cash here and there to do it, and then after a while after that, I was able to like, I take X amount a month, I like pay rent in my house, like that's it, that's all I take. The rest of it just stays there. If I had like a way to know I had a constant stream of income, and like, oh, this is definitely coming in every month, but it's not that way at the school, I'd be able to say, hey, I can pay a trainer this much each month, or whatever it would be, and it's kind of, they're doing kind of like what I was doing, helping out and whatnot. That's why most of them are there just like 1 day a week helping out, and it's discussions that I had with them prior to them coming in and helping out and stuff. So I would like to be able to have a payroll and say, hey, you want to be here 4 times this month, here you go, type of thing. And everybody's just been cool about that. That's like the brotherhood of pro wrestling. Like it's you're doing it because you love it and you want to be there and stuff.
I was just gonna add on that. Like, that's the one thing that pisses me off more than anything is when we show up for class and students aren't motivated and no one wants to do anything. It's like, Brian's not paying us for this at all, and that's not a shot at him. We all, and I still show up, Gurin shows up, Chase shows up, we all show up, and we do this because we love professional wrestling, because we've all been passionate about it one way or another for as long as we have. And when we have people come in that say they want to do it and they want to be on shows, but they show zero effort or care, that's the stuff that pisses every trainer off. And so in my back of my mind, I can lose motivation sometimes and be like, why am I even going here? If these guys don't want to do it, why am I going there? I'm not making money. I'm actually losing money on gas. Why am I showing up? Never once have I ever complained about money with Brian. I've never gotten upset that Brian's not paying me for it. I don't expect pay for it. I'm just happy that I get to contribute to something that was my childhood fantasy my whole life. So
when I'm able to give money, I do, like fantasy camps and stuff. And I make sure that everybody gets a good little payday for that type of stuff. So I'm able to kind of give some here and there. Christmas time, I gave everybody some cash and stuff. So it's like, I would like to be able to give more and do more, and but it's not a feasible thing to be doing something regularly.
But you're saying like the school itself it's not in peril, it's not down, it just more or less stays afloat.
Yep, it's been good. There were times where it was really good, and then there'll be like 3 months where there's not a new student, and so there's technically no money coming in. Mm-hmm. So those 2 months prior where I did really well is now like evened out because I had 3 months of no new students of big income coming in or anything along those lines. So there's no way of knowing officially like what comes in, what doesn't come in, things along those lines. So, but we're good. I've never had to put a dime in.
Now, to play devil's advocate a little bit, I'm not doubting everybody's love of wrestling, but let's be honest, a lot of people do come because everybody wants to kind of be looked up to a little bit, wants to be known for knowing what they're doing. Myself included, I'm not different than anybody else.
Sure helps, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not all just because of passion. I think some people really want to be like seen as something in whatever they're chosen.
Some people like that, whether they deserve it or not.
Exactly.
People like to do that, yeah.
Not me, Tarzan. Not me. For the love of the wrestling.
So to get to my next point, the most important thing of generating students to a wrestling school, which is really paying your bills. Now, I know when I started, I wanted to be a wrestler, and I knew a guy who I worked with who, it's a bizarre story, he was in the National Guard, and he was working security because Lobster Man was running a show at the Milford Armory, and he knew it, and I invited, so I met them and all that. But nowadays, it's like you've got like, social media, you've got word of mouth, you got a lot more. So do you think the students come to the wrestling schools, or do the wrestling schools have to actively try and get people to come to their school?
I think the beauty of my school is the success rate and things that it has had. And so people kind of, when they're searching for things in the area, our school comes up and people can see the track record, so they just go, oh, okay, that's good. It helps Chaotic and like a place like Beyond and a couple other places. Like if people ever ask, they kind of send them my way.
Yeah.
So that type of thing helps as well. And then twice a year we do the fantasy camp. We advertise that fairly heavily. But then, just social media, regular things, just posting about things at class and whatnot, so people are kind of seeing things, and students will share it and they'll tell people. There's a lot of word of mouth and stuff too.
Yeah, so people are reaching out to you a lot, I would imagine, not just you trying to get people.
I get emails all the time, good, bad, and indifferent, and I share some of the interesting ones with the trainers sometimes.
They're pretty amazing, actually.
Would you say it's everyone from New England, or are you getting people that are coming from like different parts of the country?
I've had people from different parts of the country. Flip's one of them. He moved all the way over here from Montana, because he wanted to come to the school.
Is there a reason why you don't try to advertise more? Because in my opinion, I feel like you lean a lot on the past success rate. Is there a reason why you haven't like tried to develop a 30-second commercial? Or
it would just be another bill type of thing. It's I have to weigh it versus, again, I would have to pay this amount. Would it get that back? Maybe not. Maybe it would just fall on deaf ears, things along those lines. Like either way, it doesn't matter. I've thought about it. We've different things we have done. We've printed out 1,000 coupons and flyers and went to the garden for Raw and handed all of them out. I didn't see a single one back. Different things along those lines. So I've tried different, old school marketing tactics. But yeah, a commercial would be a great idea, but who knows if it would pay off, risk versus reward type of thing.
Yeah. I don't know. I just feel like different forms of advertisement. Yeah, the poster thing works, but I can tell you it's the Mitch Hedberg joke. So guy hands me a flyer. It's here. You throw this away.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas like a lot of people are engulfed in social media, which you guys heavily push. I feel like the New England Pro Wrestling Academy themselves could push social media a little heavier.
100%. Yeah.
But as far as TV goes, everyone's glued to their television. I think a 30-second spot, wherever you can get it, may help, because those who don't have access to social media or don't use social media may be able to get in contact one way or another. Because I can tell you, like, personally, and this is coming from a guy who came right out of high school, I had no idea how to find a wrestling school. None. And the reason why I trained with those guys in Haverhill is literally because I had the internet at the time, and I typed in wrestling schools in Haverhill, Mass. But if I didn't have the internet, I would have never known how to find a wrestling school.
You should read a little. That's called a callback, ladies and gentlemen.
So you get these students in, and is it just like, do you have a talk with them? Like, what are their goals? Why do you want to do this? Or is it just, hey, because the famous quote from Jamie on our show was, pulse in a checkbook. So
yeah, I'm not quite that like that. There have been people I have turned away. Julian's seen a couple of people that I've turned away and just like wouldn't.
You've actually turned people away?
Yes.
Well, he only had to turn the guy away because he keeps showing up with $165.
It was one kid, yeah. But I will not take money from people that aren't necessarily like mentally all there or physically all there, things along those lines. Like, as much as I want to be that guy who says, yeah, no problem, like, I can't do it. I can't do it. Just like people ask me like all the time, oh, do you train people to be managers? Like, I'll pay to, and I'm like, take your money and you'll just stand around class forever. And when we do a couple matches, like, I'll teach you, stand there, or you say this, or I just can't do it. For whatever reason, I can't take money for things along those lines.
I'm glad, because to me, independent managers, for the most part, are the lowest form of life. There's no future in that at all.
At all.
It's a dead art.
Well, it's weird because NXT has like 3 managers right now.
Really?
Yeah, but WWE has like none, unless you're a female.
That's very strange to me. So, what about age? Have you turned down someone because of age?
15's the youngest. We'll take people at 15 and up.
Okay.
But you've never turned anyone down. Everyone came in 35, 40 years old.
No.
Like, hey, let me start this.
Because you can still do stuff on the indies or whatever. And right now, WWE are hiring people that are older than that. So
blows my mind.
But it's not like, it'd be hard for them to get to that level, I'm saying. But at the same time, yeah, no. Anybody, any 15 and up, though.
And I'd say back in the day, up to even the early 2000s, a lot of these schools were just taking money, either exercising you till you puke or beating the fuck out of you and hoping that you'll go away. Some of it is to protect the business, but at this point, the business is so exposed, I feel it's just a scam to take that money. You think that practice has gone away?
Well, I exercised him. Almost every one of my students has puked at least once or twice. And we don't take it easy on anybody. They're all bumping like crazy and feeling everything. But I'm not like purposely making it a point to like destroy their lives or anything. Everybody goes through the same thing, so it's not like, oh, you're a new guy, let's fucking kill you, and then see if you come back the next day. Like, no.
And you've never, probably the reason they're puking is most of these shitheads have never fucking exercised a day in their life before they walked into your wrestling school.
Partly that, but at the same time, like, yeah, Julian will tell you, like, we put him through the ringer, like, we push him.
Saying partly that is being nice. I think 90% of it is that there's a ton of, I want to say it's 1 out of like no shit, and you like 30 people that come in that's like, yep, go to the gym every day and I kill myself there. And then when they do drills, fine. Other than that, everyone is legitimately accidentally puking. We've had to revive dead people. I mean,
it's pro wrestling is a weird thing, and I think people think because it's in quotation marks here or air quotes fake that they don't necessarily have to be an athlete, and nothing could be farther than the truth. Wrestling it draws a lot of introverts and people that don't really leave their couch or do things too often, and I think it shows when they show up at the school and are blue in the face and puking after like one lap around the block.
Have you ever said to anyone the actual words, I don't think this is for you? Like,
I'll say there's plenty of other things in pro wrestling for you to do, but I don't know if wrestling is going to be it. Buddy Christ, I think, is one of the guys that I've kind of said that to. Like, and Buddy Christ is still around, helps out for the shows, does camera work, does editing, refereed a show like for us recently. Like, he's a great guy who always wanted to be part of the business and helped out anywhere he could. But if you saw him try to do fives, you would die. Worse than he did while he was doing it.
Tarzan would have lost his mind.
Some people argue that is sometimes done to keep these people from paying, to keep them paying dues and whatnot. And would you say there's any truth to that? 'Cause I don't know if you do dues or not, if you do everything up front. So.
No, well, there's different options. Yeah. There's upfront or quarterly or monthly and stuff. And after a year, everybody just pays like a monthly due type of thing. But no, because in his case, he just kept coming to shows and helping out and doing things and didn't keep coming to the school. So it's not like time was being wasted on him or anything along those lines. So,
I mean, is there a baffling to you that these fucking guys cannot jump?
I say that all the time. Julian's there. I'm like, why? You're leaving the ground like 3 inches. I don't get it.
Like, I'm old enough to be most of their dad, and I can do a leapfrog still. Yeah. They can't get off the fucking ground. What the hell is up with that?
A lot of guys that come in are fairly young, too. It just must be the new generation of people. Like you said, it's like, and that's weird for me to say, but it just must be a new generation of people who, like he said, doesn't leave their house, doesn't go to the gym, doesn't touch, like, don't do sports. Like, they don't do anything athletic. So this is the first thing they've ever done. So they're like, oh, this is the first time I've ever left the ground.
Right. Julian's there, and I say, like, a kid's like 17, and he's like dying. And I'm like, I never got tired when I was 17. I was 17.
Yeah, you just run.
Like, just do it. Okay, all right. Like, it just didn't get tired. It wasn't a thing. These guys are like dead.
We're going to get into that a little bit more. We're going to take a little break. When we come back, we're going to discuss a little bit more about running a wrestling school in New England, and we're going to discuss the 2 students that have had the most success from the New England Pro Wrestling Academy when we come back on Truth, Justice, and the New England Pro Wrestling Way.
Are you a wrestling fan, but you've always wanted to get in the ring? Do you want to follow in the footsteps of superstars like Donovan Dijak and Flip Gordon? Then check out the New England Pro Wrestling Academy. At the NEPWA, you can live your wrestling dreams and train at the best pro wrestling school in the Northeast. Check out neprowrestling.com for information on joining and about their upcoming fantasy camp. It's neprowrestling.com. Start your pro wrestling dreams today.
And the truth shall set you free!
And we're back with more Truth, Justice, and the New England Pro Wrestling Way. If you're just joining us, we're here with the owner of the New England Pro Wrestling Academy.
Who would be
Brian
just
Fury.
joining us? Who would just fast forward to this random mark and just happen to come across this part?
You know, I've brought that up to him several times. But, hey, you never know. You know how you start and stop a podcast? What if they, stop halfway through and they come back?
Just jump to the good stuff.
Honestly, somebody brought it up the first time I said it, and my obsession took over, and then I've made it a point to make sure I say it every episode.
Fair enough.
All right, we're back. We're discussing what it's like running a wrestling school, specifically the New England Pro Wrestling Academy. We were talking a lot about people coming in and whatnot, and how many students do you think on a monthly basis are actually coming in saying, hey, I want to be a professional wrestler?
Like how many people show up and actually sign up or
Yeah,
come
like
in
newer people,
come in
like
and
coming
look
in.
at the school?
I don't mean people that are already training, newer people that are coming in on a monthly basis.
I'll get a couple emails a day, and then maybe one person a week will kind of come look at the school, and a good month there'll be 1 or 2 signups, and then another month there may not be any. So it kind of fluctuates. A lot of times beginning of summer, like if school's out, we'll have a little bit of a influx, and then another group will come in like when school starts, which is another weird thing. Like, so, and then like, oh, spring's coming around, so all right, here comes an influx, or beginning of the new year. Like, it's just different. Like, it's there are some times where usually, all right, these people kind of pop in, and then other times it's just kind of whatever. But pro wrestling's pretty popular right now, especially on the independent level, and it's been fairly steady as far as inquiries and people coming and looking at the school and stuff.
And have you ever, you hear this all the time, have you ever did the old, the minute you saw a guy, I knew this guy was going to be a success in the business? You hear that all the time. Does that ever happen to you?
There's people that I will look at and see and go, I think they have the potential to be pretty good. I think the two guys that we're going to probably be talking about soon here. Yeah. But there's never like, it's always like, if this person can stick with it and stick around, they could do a lot of things, but never like, whoa, I knew since day one type of thing. No.
People tend to have a chip on their shoulder, especially guys, young, especially guys in the wrestling business, and everybody walks in thinking they know everything about wrestling, especially now.
Is that true, Julian?
With the,
Yep. Yep.
With the internet. Would you say anyone's ever walked in and been like, well, who the fuck are you? Why should I pay you to train me? Like,
not quite so bluntly, but yes, there are some people that are like that. Some people that are, and that's actually, it's a weird thing. It's always been like, I don't want to say a fear, but for lack of like a fear of mine, like who am I? Yeah, exactly. Like, what gives me the right to charge this person and make them, like go name drop the PC again? But like when I was asked to go be a guest trainer there, first thing in my head.
Guest trainer where?
First thing that was
no, the people want to know.
The WWE Performance Center in Orlando, Florida.
Bell go off.
Did you know you were a booker before?
I've never heard that.
That was like, I was like, who the fuck am I for them to listen to? Like, you know what I mean? It was like a big thing in my head, but that kind of goes away after a time where I just realized, like, I know what the fuck I'm talking about. I know how to teach. I know what these people need. So, if they have an issue with it, then either fucking sign up or don't. Like, just go. Like, I'm not gonna fucking beg people for money or sign up or, oh, this is what I've done. Like, this is what I've done. It's there, plain and simple. Like, sign up or not. If you want to be a pro wrestler, sign up.
To play off the whole, people coming in and saying, who the fuck do you think you are? Why should I pay you or whatever? People who do sign up, do you think that a lack of respect has grown in students? Like, and I'll equate myself to it, is like when I started, I had a chip on my shoulder and I thought I was better than everyone, and I didn't more or less disrespect. I think that's how it came off. But do you feel like people don't respect the process more than they did in the past?
I think people feel a little more free than they once were, and I try my best to nip that as much as I can. It might be a little harder for me nowadays because I'm not really active in the ring, and I'm not like active traveling with people to kind of, like, a lot of your training was not just in the school, it'd be on road trips or different things. Like, this is why you gotta fucking act this way, this is when you shut up, save all that for the fucking ride home, things along those lines. So that type of thing, I'm not necessarily there. That's for the students that are higher up to kind of do that type of thing. But there's lack of that too. Like, there was a big jump from when it was like Todd, me, Malonis, all these people around, and then there was like that next group of people, like there was like the Mercedes, the U, the Webb, the Dijak, the Flip. None of those people are there now to teach that next level of people right underneath it. Like, hey, shut the fuck up, do this, do that, because it wouldn't be Hollow teaching that to you necessarily, right? It'd be those like the guys like me and everybody trying to teach that to you. It's I said the boys police the boys. There should be that level, but there's lack of that level right now because so many people are getting gobbled up by different places. So there's almost like a little bit of a gap. So I think they can be a little more free and not know when to fucking shut the fuck up or just listen or not to, whatever.
So you're saying that I should come back to wrestling so I can police them.
By all means.
All right. See that subtle invite, Tarzan? He didn't ask you.
You're telling me there's a chance.
So before we're going to get into your two most famous students from the New England, exclusively from the New England Pro Wrestling.
Exclusively from the New England
we're
Pro
talking
Wrestling
about
Academy.
we're going to get to them in a minute. The two that exclusively they started the school when it was the New England Pro Wrestling Academy, and now have gone on to bigger things. Before we get that, a couple of questions more about the lines we're talking about. What do you think is the hardest thing to get out of people's heads that come in to train, like preconceived notions people have about wrestling or the business, or bad habits, or whatever the case may be?
No, that's a good question, because I think a lot of people have different ideas or different things, or they might think it's one thing and it's not, or they might think speed, I guess, slow the fuck down. Everybody thinks it's really fast. I don't know if there's so much. Maybe think there's more glitz and glamour. You don't realize the amount of work, time, and effort that goes into it. That was a big thing for a lot of people, especially now. Like, hey, show day, be at the venue at 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
Start doing that ring. Show gets over at 11. Start doing that ring. You're going back to the storage facility, putting it all back in there. You're done there at like 1:30. Guess what? We got class the next morning at 10. And then you're probably going to a different show that night. Like, the amount of time and effort that goes into it, and the people that don't put that time and effort in, the ones that kind of fall off by the wayside. So, I mean, that's another one, I think. People that don't realize how much actually goes into it.
Yeah, I think it's the work ethic that goes into wrestling. Is as a student, former student, whatever you want to say. When I started wrestling, I thought it was like a gym membership or a job. You go in, train, go home. That's it. I didn't think there was a ring crew. I didn't think you had to go to the gym on top of it. Like, there's a lot of work to be done. And so I have to assume that everyone has that same mindset, because when you watch wrestling, you just, like, even wrestling you watch on TV, you have to assume it's like, oh, cool, they showed up for work, they did their job, they went home.
On Raw, some of them show up with only 10 minutes left in the show.
Yeah. And, like, it's not that. They're showing up, hours before the show. They're staying till the very end of the show. There's on the independent scene in New England and all that, it's you have to stay, take apart the ring, put it in the truck.
There's promos to be filmed.
Yeah,
there's this, there's that, there's everything else. There's a lot that goes into it. I don't think people realize or see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I remember a quote from John Morrison when he was on Tough Enough, and he said how I know it's quite a reference, but
Especially coming from you.
he said, well, I don't want to learn these things that everybody can do. I want to do the things, that only I can do. And to me, that's kind of like a lot of the attitude is nobody wants to learn the basics. They just want to jump to the moonsaults and the power bombs and things like that. And I would imagine that still has to be, even in this day and age, it's still got to be a problem.
We get that out of them very quickly, because they don't even come to the advanced ring where they have the ability to do that stuff. There you go, you're over here. A lot of times their first day is not, you're not even in the ring. You're learning those lockups outside the ring. Depends on how many people are there, things along those lines, the level of people that are in that beginner ring. But yeah, that's kind of like, you got to learn how to walk for learn how to run. It's a big thing we do there.
I feel like a lot of people nowadays kind of got away with that, got away from that, and I think it's because
Hardy Boys are gone?
Well, no, yeah, but like think about it. All three of us at this table at one point or another backyard wrestled.
Yep.
So we all saw and did all those moves back then. Backyard wrestling is almost hardly a thing now, in my
I don't think it is, which is weird.
Not like it was.
Yeah, so like I don't think everyone that's coming in has that preconceived, that experience of like, oh, I used to try moves on my brother, my sister. I used to wrestle in the backyard. It's just everyone's coming in with a blank slate. So I don't see many people coming in saying, I want to do a moonsault. I want to do this a lot. I feel like that's a lot less now than it was before.
Now it's like, I got to get that stuff out of the people. Come on, try something different. Do something cool.
Stop doing arm drags during your comeback. So with the setup of the New England Pro Wrestling Academy, you have a different setup than most people. You have a pretty big building, but you have 2 rings operational. The biggest thing that I think you have that a lot of people don't is you have a lot of trainers. What is the reasoning behind that?
Again, I want to be able to utilize both rings as much as possible. And so I try to stick, for the most part, to the advanced students and go over that stuff. And then I have people that work on those fundamentals and foundations. So Johnny Vegas is there almost always 2 days a week, except during the summertime. He's got a lot of other things going on where he's doing baseball announcing and who knows, whatever else. So then I have you, and I have Scotty Slade. You guys have Tuesdays and Thursdays. And I think you guys are great to make sure that those fundamentals and foundations and all that stuff are there before they get kind of sent over to my ring. On Wednesdays we have Scott Gurin and Chase, and they're kind of together, and that's like a different type of class almost. You know, Scott does a lot of like the Chikara type things and different things. Chase kind of does some of the advanced stuff, but Chase is a hollow guy too, so he's very fundamentals, and they're both very much characters. You know, anybody that knows Chase knows he's quite the character, and so he's big on like that type of thing. So I think you're getting a little something different from everybody that's there, but they're also there in their assigned roles, kind of teaching them and helping these people get what they need to get.
Now, because I was primarily, I realistically took a heavy amount of training from you, and I took a lot of the style that you trained. So I trained similar to you in the sense of how things should be done.
That's a big part of why I really wanted you on the staff too, was because you were a guy that was trained by me, so you know literally exactly what I look for and little things or this and that and stuff like that. So you're, you know, like a perfect candidate to be able to help and kind of pass my exact knowledge on that lower level. Yeah,
I appreciate that. What I want to say off of that is, do you think that a lot of your students get confused because, you know, wrestling, you can't please everyone, and everyone's going to have a different style, and the way I teach a hip toss is going to be different than how Chase teaches it. It's going to be different how Scott teaches it. And so with me, I'm like, no. Chase says yes. Scott Gurin says no. They say yes, and then they're like, I don't know what the fuck's going on anymore.
Kind of. You were trained by 3 different people.
Yep.
Did it confuse you a lot?
It did, and I adapted to your stuff more than anyone else's.
Which is good. I appreciate that. But I think it's everybody's heard the term wrestling is ice cream, right? you like chocolate? I like Rocky Road. But it's like, again, once you kind of understand the basics of it, that foundation of how to get your ass up and over for hip toss per se, as long as you're getting your post there and you're going down and up and over, while some people may teach things a little bit differently, once you understand it, you're going to take what you know and make it your own. So I always tell people, like, look, if you're having all these questions about stuff or there's that many different things, come to me, ask me, I'll tell you the definitive answer. That's the beautiful part of the school, is like, there's all these different people, but I'm like the last definitive answer, the go-to, the person that gives people the okay to move to the advanced ring or move on to shows, things along those lines, so they can come talk to me about whatever they need to. But yeah, I think possibly some people that are more nervous or worried about that type of stuff, like, oh, this guy does this, or this guy does this, this guy does this. But then there are people like, I'll say, for instance, like a cashew, like he'll take it, and then just go, okay, and then kind of just do it, and then, all right, it's fine, like, and he just does it and doesn't think about the little differences that each 3 might be doing.
All right, so now we're going to discuss your 2 most famous students. And when I say your most famous, I mean the ones that came from, when they walked in day 1, it was the New England Pro Wrestling Academy, and when they left, it was the New England.
Yes, okay.
Travis Flip Gordon, Ring of Honor superstar, Travis Flip Gordon.
You hated that name, didn't you?
I hate it now. Flip is the worst fucking name I've ever heard. I'd rather they just call him Travis Gordon.
He's now the mercenary.
What does he do? Oh, he flips. Okay. I hate that fucking name. Nothing against him. I just hate that fuck. I've always hated that name.
It's a different name. It's just different in the wrestling business. He's not like a Frank or a Francis. He's Flip.
Flip Gordon.
You know, I discovered Flip Gordon.
What are your thoughts on Flip?
I think Flip he's one of those guys where you could see his background in gymnastics and him being in the National Guard and his work ethic and stuff, and I knew if he could stick with it, he could go a lot of places, and obviously he has. I knew the style of wrestling that he liked and was able to do would work well for the style of wrestling and stuff that was popular and emerging a lot in the scene. Part of the reason where I made sure that first Battle Royal he was in and stuff, like when you booked him, was like, Julian's the guy to kind of work with him first time in front of a crowd and stuff, because he's going to get the best out of him and the most out of him. And I think a lot of people didn't like Flip at first because he had a bad attitude, but I would also tell those people, like, yeah, he's giving you shit for not working hard while he's doing it, rather than just standing on the outside saying you got to work harder. He's fucking out like lapping people on the track and giving him shit as he's passing them. Like, let's fucking go. Like, it's not like he was a slacker and gave other people shit. He would work twice as hard as them and then ask them, why aren't you fucking doing things? And I think that type rubbed people the wrong way a little bit at first. But he's, you know, I don't want to say overachiever, but yeah, he's anything that he's wanted to do and tried to do, he's done. Like, he's a special type of talent in that sense.
Well, I never had an issue with him, but maybe because I was the booker, he didn't. I don't know. I mean, so what do you think, John?
I think a lot of it's envy, because this is going to sound really bad, because it's going to sound like I'm putting myself over, but I rubbed a lot of people the wrong way too. And
I did too when I was younger. I told you the same thing, and then what did I tell you?
Yep.
I said, he is you,
Yep.
which was me.
Yes.
You talked to him.
And what it was is, like, wrestling's such a weird situation where you almost have to earn the right to speak your mind, which is, it's so baffling because there's nowhere else like it. Like, I mean, I speak my mind everywhere I go, my job, wherever it is. It's just a different entity. As far as Flip goes, when he walked in, as Brian just stated, he was super athletic, and anything you showed him, got it immediately. Like, he had no problem understanding anything. That mixed with he had the physical ability to do things that no one in the ring at that time could do. I think some of that came from envy. And so if you envy someone's ability and then it becomes a threat, they could potentially take your spot, that person can piss you off. That, and he was around at the time for enough for a cup of coffee. And so being around a short period of time and opening your mouth to people who have been around for a long time can rub you the wrong way. But I did the same thing, and it wasn't that I thought it was better than everyone. I just thought I could outwork everyone.
I did the same thing too.
Yeah.
Made a lot of people angry.
Yeah, so I've always liked Flip. I've never had a problem with him. There are some things he's done that I have talked to him about that I said it's a shitty thing to do, and do not do that, because I go back to the Mike Hollow thing that he taught me, which is your face is your resume, and if you give a bad impression, that will stick with you for probably ever, unless you get injured, come back and change your image. That's what happened to me. I'm serious. I had a shitty image in wrestling. I hurt my neck, came back, and I was able to reinvent.
When did that stop?
What are you trying to say there, pal?
And your other most famous student. He's a former Ring of Honor star, current NXT star. I know him as Donovan Dijak, but I'm going to butcher if I try and pronounce.
I'll help you out, pal. It is Dominik Dijakovic.
There you go.
Close.
Dijakovic, that's right.
Dijakovic, Croatian.
So, thoughts on Donovan Dijak?
He started at right when I broke my ankle. So his first maybe month or so at the school, I was kind of there, kind of not there. I remember he hurt his ribs and he was wearing a padded shirt to run the ropes, and I was fucking giving him shit beyond belief. Like, what the fuck are you doing, you big fucking pussy? But he was another one of those guys that had a determination to be better than everybody else at class. He was one of those guys that wanted to do the drills better than everybody, wanted to learn the moves and dissect the matches and stand out at every turn. And you as a booker, he moved up fast, not only just because of his size and stuff. Granted, that's your go-to. Look at the size of this guy.
This guy's huge. Got to get him on a show.
But he not like he wasn't performing up to that level too. He was the same way at class. He was one of those guys I had to talk to. I was like, look, people think you're an asshole. You're this, you're that. You had to curtail it. He didn't realize it. He came from a sports background. He came from playing football and basketball for colleges and stuff, and so everybody was on equal footing just on the team, and performance was the only thing that mattered. He didn't understand how it worked in pro wrestling, so I was like, look, you gotta fucking shut up and earn your stripes and this and that and stuff. And from there on, he did. But I think he's not one of those guys. Both these guys are guys that always wanted to outwork everybody, always wanted to shine more than everybody, and always wanted to. It reminds me of me and Julian, one of those types. We always wanted to fucking, I'll do this drill better than you, or I'll have a better match than you in this show, whatever else. He was one of those guys, and he's fucking done amazing for himself.
Yeah, huge success. It's got to make you proud to have these two guys. They're now international stars.
Yeah, it's very happy. Especially in the case of Dijak, where him and I became buddies. We still text every day, flip every once in a while. But Dijak's one of those guys where. I became close with him. Part of his not a part of his wedding, but went to his wedding and stuff. Was there for around like not too long after he had his first child and stuff. Like we're pals, so I'm super happy for him. Flip, awesome. You know, he's got the world in his hand right now, and you know, based on when his contract's up, we'll see where he goes. I'm sure he's going to have multiple offers, a lot of different places to be able to go to that top level of professional wrestling. So yeah, I'm super happy for those guys. You know, it's one of those things where I like to, but I don't like to be like, whoa, these guys are from my school and I trained them, blah, blah, blah. But it helps. That type of thing helps the school, helps me. So it's awesome that, you know, they're doing great things. Like, it's really, really cool.
I mean, first time I saw Dijak, I didn't say this guy's going to be a star, but my eyes definitely lit up, and I was like, train this fucker as fast as possible. I want him on the show.
Yeah. It's one of those things, like I said earlier, like, I saw him and I was like, these people have a lot of potential and they could do a lot of things if they stick with it. If he sticks with it and does more, like, yeah, I don't see anywhere he can't go if he doesn't want to.
I mean, it's got to be great publicity now for your school that these two guys came from your school, you trained them, and then your name's attached to them, and now, you know, that's got to give your school a good name.
It's awesome. Like, it's great. It's one of those things I can put out there and promote to potential people wanting to come and stuff. Dijak's still one of those guys that's only a little bit on NXT, but people know who he is. Flip's actually kind of a bigger name right now in the world due to his appearances on Being the Elite and everything with the Bucks and whatnot before, and it being on All In and stuff. So yeah, it's awesome. It's really cool.
Do you this is going to sound like a shot at you, and I promise you it's not. Do you ever feel any envy or aggravation that you know, these guys got there, but you didn't in less time?
No, I wouldn't say that. I wish I was fucking 5 years younger to be able to be doing a lot of the stuff that they're doing. I think with the wrestling scene now, I'd have the ability to do a lot. But no, there's no real envy. It was a very different time when I was like in my prime. So I'm just happy for him, and now I have to look at different ways for me to build my own brand in professional wrestling. It's not going to necessarily be in ring. You know, there's a bunch of different things that I could possibly do.
Build your Firebrand.
And your decision, you own a wrestling company, so that does not affect, or does it affect, the decisions you make with your wrestling school?
Not necessarily. I think it's the same way that it was before. You know, we were still always loosely affiliated with Chaotic Wrestling, so a lot of our students still did ring crews and helped out with there and did stuff. We were always still like kind of a feeder program for it, so it's not like anything has really changed in that aspect, I don't think. Outside eyes may say differently. I don't really know, but I don't think it has been.
All right. So anyone knows you knows you don't really like to be put on the spot, but we're going to ask you a couple of harder questions now.
I've been waiting for this the whole podcast.
So number one, I read an interview with you when you did your so-called retirement, and you had said how now you were excited because you could put 100% into your school. Mm-hmm. Flash forward to now, you're an active wrestler again. You own a wrestling company.
I don't know about active, but okay, go on.
And you, like I said, you own a wrestling company as well. So do you think that's taken away from that 100% at all?
No, I don't think it has, because when I was wrestling myself full time, you know, I'd be wrestling 3-4 times a week, every single week. I'd be thinking about, you know, I wouldn't be able to be at Saturday classes, sometimes Thursday classes. There'd be so many different things that I would have my mind and head on. I still wanted to care about my own career versus more than my students, maybe, things along those lines. So now that literally it's the school, and it was a year later until the promotion and stuff came about. So I think the school is still first and foremost, and I think that all my attention really goes there, especially with some of the students that we have now that are coming out and getting on shows and stuff, really helping them get their feet wet and do things. It's a little difficult for me doing that now versus before, where I could just load up a car full of students and take them with me and kind of get them places, versus now I'm like, hey, you know, got a couple of shows here, you know, some people there, or these are the people to contact, versus just kind of bringing them and introducing them myself. So that's, I wouldn't say a little more difficult, but a little more challenging. But no, I still think I'm 100% into the school, getting ready to repaint and upgrade the insides a little bit. So that's going to be a fun little project and task coming up.
And to play off that, because you said you're 100% into the school, I remember when I trained with you, everything was very, very strict. Scheduling was strict. Starting was strict. You had to be on time, and you had a very structured way of doing things. I'm a trainer there now, and it just doesn't feel
that way. There's times where we start like late. There's times where the structure doesn't feel like it's there. It's just like, what are we going to do today? And I know a lot of it sometimes is based on who shows up, but it just, I don't know, something doesn't feel right. And I was going to ask you, do you feel like the Performance Center visits have kind of dropped your motivation locally?
No. You're right in the aspect of it's kind of like see who shows up and things along those lines. It's hard because there are so many students there, and I'll see some once every 3 weeks. I'll see some there every class. I'll see a couple there once in a blue moon, and I do have to take assessment of who's there as far as what we're going to do in ring and things along those lines. But as far as blow-up drills and stuff, I mean, you're there. Even if we start 10, 15 minutes late, there are still people kind of showing up 10, 15 minutes into us when we're starting off late. So I know we do different types of blow-up drills in the summertime. We'll go outside. We'll do laps around the block and stuff. It's not just strictly fives or things along those lines as far as like what it used to be. So it is a little more lax, but I think when we still do stuff, it's still pushing and making sure everybody does what they're supposed to do. I was yelling an awful lot on Tuesday. My voice is a little raspy right now because I was in a couple of people's spaces yelling quite a bit while we were doing some blow-up drills and stuff. But I don't think it's taken my eyes off of anything locally. I think it's given me maybe a goal to shoot for, so maybe push a little harder as far as making sure the quality that comes out is better. But yeah, I feel it too, and I don't know if it's me losing grip on something or being a little too nice or laid back, but it's just different, I think, than what it used to be.
And that's what I was going to ask, was what do you think is causing it? Because as you know, when there's first the Chaotic Training Center, you had, Coach Hollow, and like, I mean, I'm speaking personally, I was afraid to piss him off. Even when I trained with you, Malonis, I had respect for you guys. And I'm not saying that no one respects you or that your students don't, but I respected you guys enough to treat you as such. You were my trainer, you were my coach, and so I was expected to show up at 6:30 and be ready to go. And I feel like now everyone has a very like, well, who gives a shit?
I wouldn't say everybody, but there are some people that are kind of like that.
I feel like a large majority.
But those are those same people that are there once a week or don't go to the shows, don't help out with the ring crew. So, as I'll say this out loud, like, I treat them as such. They don't care enough about wanting to get something out. So I'm not going to go above and beyond to almost like... It's one of those things, if I see something in somebody, I'm going to push them more and harder than if I saw someone not giving 100%, and I'll have a conversation with them and just kind of see where their head's at. And then after that, I'm not going to, I'm not going to keep pushing because, like, what the fuck? Like, you're not going to give 110% to this. Why would I give 100% into you? That's not saying I don't give them the same training while they're there, but I'm not like a strict or hard or things along those lines with those particular people. And right now, there seems to be maybe more of that than the latter.
And just because we're talking about owning a wrestling school or operating a wrestling school in the New England area in general, do you feel like, and this is to play off to Tarzan's question, if you are an active wrestler, do you feel like it does have some sort of effect if you're an active wrestler and owning, like for other schools, or do you think it can be a factor or an effect on the training that you produce because you necessarily don't want to show your students all your secrets and fear that your spot may be lost?
No, I wouldn't go that far. It's one of those things, and I've said this to you, I think talent won't be stopped. So I'm not too worried about, I would never be worried about like a student taking my spot somewhere or things along those lines. That's just kind of weird. It was really weird to me when I had my first match back in December after 2 years out of the ring that most of my students had never seen me wrestle before. And that was a really weird thing to like realize, I guess, that none of them had seen me wrestle. So maybe in that sense, they could kind of understand that I'm, I do what I preach at the school. So as far as what you just said, yeah, no, I'm not too worried about that.
All right, since you've owned the New England Pro Wrestling Academy, you've seen a lot of students come and go. Has there ever been a student where you were just like, at one point, threw your arms up and like, I can't fucking do anything with this guy. I can't train him. I give up. The guy's hopeless.
There's been a couple, and a lot of them, end up leaving.
Will you name them?
I don't know if I could think of like names in particular. I mean, we talked about Buddy Christ earlier. Buddy Christ was one of those guys where it was like, you are not going to do anything in the fucking ring in the wrestling business. It's just one of those things. You're not coordinated. You fucking die every time we do anything physical. And then I can see some of the students that don't physically have any sort of gifts, I guess you could say. And it's hard. And people like that still come and try, like I won't give up on. But there are some people where I just feel like I'm talking to a brick wall and everything I say, just fucking goes in one ear and out the other, and they don't listen to anything I say, or they don't actually, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to say like adapt, but put into play anything that I am fucking telling them over and over again.
Absorb? They don't absorb?
Absorb.
Absorb and adjust, I guess?
Yeah, I can't think of the word. Those are 3 A's: adapt, absorb, adjust. And it's frustrating. And I fucking tell them, I'm like, look, you're not going to go any further. You're going to completely plateau unless you fucking start listening and start doing the things that I'm telling you here, because I can talk to this fucking brick wall and they're going to listen just as well as you are right now, so it's not going to make any difference if you don't start actually putting some more thought into this and move forward.
Just to play on that, you've kicked a couple people out of the school.
Yep.
Permanently or just...
Two total. One was like 4 fucking times because he's a complete idiot.
And if you're okay if I drop the name, right?
Go for it.
All right. So Tex got kicked out of the school a couple times.
Julian's BFF.
Yeah, I love Tex. And so I guess, and who else was it?
Recently Marcos.
Marcos was kicked out of school. In the past, didn't Mark Sherman get kicked out once?
Not like kicked out like I told him to fucking like get out of the ring, leave, like
okay,
your head's not in the game today, like, and you've been talking back too much, like just go. But it was never like don't come back. These two had been spoken to numerous times about different things, and it was like, all right, like you got to go.
That's what I was going to ask. Is there are people that do some bad things or some stupid things, whatever. What exactly warrants you kicking someone out of your school for what should be good, but
Tex. Fucking kid. So Tex had like 10 strikes, The first time he finally got officially kicked out, he had been spoken to numerous times about his attitude and how he represents himself and whatever and these other things. And he went to the Belltime Club one time to train, and everybody knew he was like one of my guys. And so everybody knew he's like representing me, my school, and he's there. And he's in the ring, and he looks at, like, the bottom buckle in their ring, and it was, like, I don't know if it was, like, not there or exposed, and he, like, kicked it. He's like, this place is a piece of shit. Nobody wants to come fucking train here. And then, of course, like, people that are there talk to me, because I'm friends with Bo, and word gets back to me, and so I had to, like, ask a couple questions about it, like, and that was, he already had, like, 3 strikes, and I told him, like, you can't fucking do anything like that. So I was like, there's nothing I can do to you. You have zero respect for anything. That was like the first time he left. And then I fucking, after a while, like, okay, maybe he's fucking smartened up because he's just a kid and he's an idiot. I took him back, and I don't remember what the next time was, why he got kicked out again. And then for whatever reason, I have a soft spot for that fucking kid because he had a lot of natural talent, but he was just a complete, utter idiot in every sense of the word. And the last time he finally got kicked out for good, which might have been the 4th time he was kicked out, was at the fantasy camp. And, he took something that I think you said, Julian, and a couple of people said like the complete wrong way. we have breaks at fantasy camps. People usually have matches or whatever. And so Julian's like work them like they're a crowd and get them invested.
Yeah, work on your craft.
Yeah, and get them invested. And so he decided to work the crowd. I'm doing air quotes here by doing some fucking scathing shoot promo on fantasy camp students that were there, telling them they're pieces of shit and how he's fucking got this much talent and he's being held down and spitting at a kid and this and that and like walking out. And it's like what the fuck are you doing, man? He will never get it in the wrestling business. He'll never understand wrestling because he still thinks it's fucking 1930 and you gotta actually work people and things along those lines. He's just complete utter moron. Julian's fucking best friend.
I don't. Okay, so the reason why I like Tex is because his heart is in the right spot, but his mind is completely lost. And I don't believe in giving up on people. And I think he feels like people are giving up on him. And I don't want to be the one guy that, if he turns to, people give up. I know people lose patience. It's just, I remember what it was like to be stupid. And yes, I did learn from a lot of stuff.
Yeah, but he doesn't. And I didn't again, I gave him numerous chances. Kicked him out, brought him back, kicked him out, brought him back, kicked him out, brought him back. Finally, fuck. Now it's on me, 100% on me. It was on me the first fucking time. Now it's really me is my fault. I'm an idiot for continuing fucking giving you chances because you're clearly not fucking listening, paying attention, or doing anything along those lines. It's fucking frustrating.
I personally can't give up on him, but we all have our own, thresholds, I guess.
Kid's a tool. You're the only person I know that actually still likes that kid.
Can you substantiate that he asked Davey Ann out in front of the whole class?
That was like a Saturday morning class. Yeah, he fucking. What did he say? He was like, "Yeah, go you'll I don't have a car or anything, so you'll pick me up," and made her said she's gonna pay for it and all this stuff.
Was he cutting a promo?
He's delusional.
But was he?
No, he's delusional. He's not right in the head.
All right. I probably have a whole bunch of text things I could ask, but I don't want to. Let's not dominate the podcast talking about poor old text. But
just trying to bring up things with students and whatnot.
You were once quoted as saying, "Sasha Banks is the greatest female wrestler in the world."
She was.
Do you?
Was.
You're gonna say? Wait, was?
He said
Get
was.
that first. Are you saying that comment was not influenced at all by the fact that you had a hand in her training?
I think at that point in time she was. Just like I would say right now Seth Rollins is the greatest male wrestler in the world. Or, Johnny Gargano is the best male wrestler in the world right now. At that point in time, she was the best female wrestler in the world. I have it has nothing to do with the fact that I helped train her at the beginning. It's just at that point in time, that's where she was. She was it.
But she's not anymore.
Charlotte. I'd say Charlotte is right now.
I don't really have an opinion on the matter. I don't like women's wrestling, so they all suck to me. No. I'm kidding. There are some good women's wrestlers out there. I'd say my favorite in the entire wrestling world.
In the world is a pretty bold statement.
I'd say mine is Tessa, but I don't like
Have you ever
wrestling.
even seen her wrestle?
Tessa?
Yes.
Yes.
You watch Impact run the regular?
No, but I have seen some of her matches. I follow her on Instagram. I watch some of her.
I follow her on
clips and
Instagram too. Big fan.
I like her.
All right. Is there any heat that exists between wrestling schools? Is that ever a thing?
I think other schools might have heat with me for some reason. Everybody seems to think that I don't know, I'm trying to I'm in competition with other places, or I'm trying to put other people out of business or anything, some things like that. I don't really care or think about other wrestling schools. I just want everybody from my school to progress and do the best and move on. What other wrestling schools do, it doesn't really affect me. The only thing that I would say would affect me would be if people just look at two wrestling schools and they say, oh, this place costs this much and this place costs this much, well, I'm going to go there because it's cheaper. That's the only thing I think another wrestling school could or would really affect me in my school.
Did you hear, personally or through the grapevine, that there was heat between schools?
You hear that stuff all the time. People talk about students will go wrestle somewhere or maybe train somewhere else for a day or do a seminar somewhere, and they're like, people are like, oh, you're one of Fury's guys, huh? Like, they sense the animosity, and of course, I hear everything too. So it's just, I don't play into anything along those lines because I don't care. I don't care enough to deal with anything along those lines because it doesn't really affect me. It doesn't matter. Great, have a school, do well. I'm happy for you. I just want my school to do well and my students to do well, and you guys do your own thing. Go for it.
That's always been a thing, though, because as we have stated in the past, the whole Chaotic had that stigma that they were the better wrestlers out of everyone in New England and yada, yada, yada. So I feel like that's always been a thing in New England wrestling, if not wrestling in general, is school competing against school. My wrestlers are better than your wrestlers. And I think this boils down to the one thing that I talk about all the time, which is wrestlers have big egos. And so I assume trainers have bigger ones in a sense that their training is the best and their way is the best. I'm not shitting on them. I don't know them in any way, shape, or form, but I guarantee you Danny Cage from the Monster Factory, thinks he's probably the best trainer in the world. I'm not saying he is or isn't. I'm just saying he probably has that opinion on himself because he's turned out some good talent. Mm-hmm. But, you can lead a horse to water. It's just the horse either drinks or doesn't.
Right. I think just like when you are wrestling, you have to have a certain amount of I guess arrogance or confidence in yourself to know that to know that what you're doing is correct. And I always train my students to hold yourself in a high regard because you know what it's like there, Julian. You do tutors, and I don't let people out of that school to wrestle on shows unless they're at a certain point. And I know for a fact that other schools will let people out on shows long before that point that I let them out at. I'm not saying students of mine couldn't wrestle on shows earlier than they do, but I'd like to let them wait longer so they are a little more ahead of the curve as new students. And I get that type of feedback from places all the time. Like, people that are out there within their first 5 or 6 months of actually being on shows, and people on those shows are like, oh wow, I can't believe you're that early. I can't believe you're this far in. Well, it's because of the way that we do things there and how much I make them wait before they're actually able to go out and do things.
How important is it to you to get your students on shows in your own wrestling company?
You know what it's like. You've been a booker before, Tarzan.
I have. I don't know if I mentioned that.
I don't think you've done yet on this episode. Glad you got that in.
There are roles that you want to fill sometimes, and so and things that you need to things that you want certain people to fill, and sometimes that may be a student, sometimes that may be from outside. Chaotic is still, I'd like to think, one of the better places in New England to wrestle, so the talent level is a little higher or harder to get to than other places. So it's not always going to be students right away starting there, but I do want to get students on those shows. I think when they earn that right and they get there, I think it's a big accomplishment for them because of the amount of ring crew and work that they put into helping set up the shows and make the shows run as security and whatever else. So I think they look at it as a big accomplishment and a goal. Obviously, I want to get them there, but I don't want to just pigeonhole something or force somebody on a show that if it's not doesn't work or doesn't fit yet, or there's not necessarily a storyline or something for them. But yeah, it is a goal. But I don't want to just make it happen.
You don't
just
want
because
you don't want it to be like a similar correlation to or like a connection like the CTC was to Chaotic. Like, oh, if you put in do your dues and yada yada yada, you'll get graduated to here. You want them to go venture out and almost earn their spot on the Chaotic show.
100%. I still want them to go out there and wrestle other places and do other things. I send students every Thursday night down to XWA, or they were doing some of the Wednesday Night Beyond shows, and I send them out to a lot of other places to kind of get their feet wet. It was Liberty States for a while, and APW, NCW, a lot of those places where students go and get their feet wet at first. Very rarely will a student have their first matches on Chaotic shows versus other shows. I want them to understand what it's like to work in front of a crowd versus just in class, and get out there and get that experience before kind of bringing them into Chaotic. And now, again, I want to make sure that there's something there for them or something that they can do that works rather than just kind of throw them out there in a random match or scenario.
All right. And another question I have, if you were to have a student that would move on to great success for example, was signed to the WWE or whatnot, would it bother you at all if they didn't like give you any of the credit for their success?
If they gave me none, maybe. Yeah, I guess. I struggle in general with, I guess, having like an identity as a trainer now and having people know who I am just by name as a trainer. And I want that. And I don't know if I have it, like we talked about earlier, like, oh, I was trained by Kowalski. People know, oh, he was a great wrestling school. Or I'm not sure what schools have that now. Booker T,
Funaki,
the Dudleys,
Bubba Ray,
Lance Storm. And the amount of people that I've trained that have gone on to do things, I think I should have that a little more than I do. And it's something that I want. So it would bug me in a sense like, fuck, I want that type of recognition because I want people to come to the school. I want people to come train there. And I want people to know if they were trained by me that that's all they have to say and people understand it. So it would bug me in that sense. But at the same time, maybe the reason they're not giving it to me is because there's a falling out or something along those lines. So it might bug me. Yeah, it would probably, I guess it boils down to, it probably would bug me some. And now that I'm thinking about it and kind of just meandering through thoughts and stuff, it probably would bug me.
Well, I mean, I think it's human nature for anyone, especially in the wrestling business. You want recognition. I think we all do. I mean...
Nope, not me. I'm okay. With never being.
I mean, if I listened to a podcast of someone who was under my reign when I was a booker and they never mentioned me, I can't sit here and say that doesn't bother me on any level. So I don't think it's abnormal or even arrogant, or I don't know what you'd call it, but I think it's normal, especially in the wrestling business. No matter what level of success, we all want to be recognized.
I think that's anything in life. Like if you helped someone become successful in absolutely anything and you never got recognition for the help that you did, like they never put you over in any way, shape, or form, I think you'd feel like what you helped them with or what you gave them was unappreciated.
I think I struggle with that. And I also struggle with putting out there more the things that I have done as far as training and stuff, and I think that might hinder me too. It's just I should, and people talk to me all the time about this, like I need to put out more, like, oh, I trained Flip, I trained Sasha, I helped train Oni, I trained Dijak, and now the next level of students, the Joshes, the AGs, the Christians, and people that are moving up, like people say I should put that out there more so it will help me more, and it's just I'm trying to find a balance of, oh, I'm putting myself over, but at the same time, it's business-wise, that's kind of what I need to do and should do to drive business. And I want to start doing seminars other places and drive like a name value for me, people to want to go to a seminar with me, things like that.
I'm the first person that will immediately jump on you and call you a mark if you ever did that. But to be fair, I'm genuinely going to ask. I don't understand what would you, other than busting your balls and calling you a mark for it, that's one, it's a genuine fact, you stating all that stuff. Two, it is to help push your, it's like your resume as to who you've trained and your credibility. And so all that's going to do is help market the school. So I think you should do it. Yeah, people are going to typically do that to bust your balls, but you as a person shouldn't actually worry about that or even care about that because one, it's going to help your business. Two, they're 100% fact stated, so I guess I just don't understand really why you would have to do it. Who cares about people's opinions?
Right. Well, it's hard for me to do that. Maybe it's because of the way that's always been in wrestling. We bust each other's balls or whatever else, and it's like, but I need to, I guess, get over that and just really start to get, I guess, my accomplishments out there more so that the name is a little more recognized.
I'll just to play off that, I know it's going to be a little off topic, but I feel like wrestling destroyed a lot of things like that, like little things like I can't be a fan of anyone to their face because wrestling taught me don't be a mark to other wrestlers. So like I went to an As I Lay, this is going to be off topic, I'm sorry, but I went to an As I Lay Dying concert, and the singer comes down, and he's like, hey, you guys want to come meet me? I'm with Susanna, and she goes, oh, go meet him, shake his hand. I was like, nope, not going to be a mark. I didn't want to meet him, take a picture or nothing, because wrestling taught me don't be a mark for the guys who do the same thing in the business. So that dawned on me, and I just wanted to kind of share that. But I feel like that's kind of where I can relate to mentally.
It's I mean, like autographs definitely a ruin for me.
Yeah.
As soon as I signed my first autograph, I was like, oh, all right. Like, being on the other end of that, just like scribbling my fucking name down on a piece of paper or something, like, autographs are completely ruined for me. I would still take pictures with certain people, yeah, like if I met certain people, yeah, but at the same time, there's a line there where I'm like, yeah, no, I don't fucking need to go see that guy, whatever. Like, certain people, like, there's a level of stardom, obviously, where I would be like, yep, nope, getting a picture with that guy, but
Yeah.
I think people that are, like, famous but not super famous, I'm like, yeah, whatever, it's not a big deal. It's almost like you get embarrassed or you don't want to do it, but yeah. Unless it's at Disney, Tarzan, and go meet Mickey Mouse any day of the
come
week.
on. I mean, or Donald Duck wearing a sombrero. All right. So, to my knowledge, in New England, other than your school, there's the Belltime Club. I believe Showcase Wrestling has a wrestling school.
Top Rope Wrestling.
Top Rope Wrestling. I believe XWA has a wrestling school. I believe Louis Ortiz trains for APW.
Yeah, the WAR Wrestling Academy.
And I believe Slick Wagner Brown has a school in
Did you say
Connecticut.
Sick
Yeah.
Wagner Brown or
I
Select?
believe I said Slick, but you
Okay.
can
Hey,
go
don't
back
hate.
and listen. So, hypothetically,
I think there's another school in like Western Mass as well.
Okay.
One
Oh,
or
yeah.
two, actually. I think Kevin Landry still has one. I think there's another one down there too.
So hypothetically, I'm an 18-year-old lad just getting out of school, and I want to be a pro wrestler. The floor is yours. Sell me on why I should sign up for the New England Pro Wrestling Academy.
The proof is in the pudding. You look at what some of these other places have or haven't turned out, and even just within New England wrestling, you can see. You look at, like, you hear the name Harvard or you hear the name Yale, and you know, like, it's a reputable place. People that come out of there have gone on to do big things. So I think you should do your due diligence as far as wrestling schools and stuff as well. What have these other places done? I think the big difference between me and other schools is I train people to be pro wrestlers. A lot of places train people to be independent wrestlers. And I want my students to be pro wrestlers. I don't want them to have just a goal of to be wrestling on Chaotic. I want them all to have goals of working for WWE, AEW, Ring of Honor, Japan, Mexico. I want that to be their goal, and I think I have the ability to train them and help them get to those levels. So I mean, that's the biggest thing. Just the proof is in the pudding. Look at what these places have or haven't turned out, and then look what I have versus these other places, and it should be pretty clear where you should be kind of going. Plus, then, if you look at the other schools, I haven't seen all of them, but the level of cleanliness, the level of professionalism looking, I can't think of too many other schools that have 2 bathrooms, a full lounge where you can, with a tape library and Roku's, you can watch wrestling, an office, 2 rings. That type of stuff isn't available like anywhere that I know of. It's night and day compared to a lot of places. Think about where we started, Tarzan. Like at the beginning was like a backyard for you, right? And then Jeff's fucking little
It was a warehouse,
yeah.
and then it was someone's backyard.
and then even Steve's, like it was like a little
It's a warehouse.
like a warehouse thing. Yeah,
It was like a storage unit.
yeah, with like a ring in it, and it's like this is the nicest place for like local area type stuff that I've like ever seen.
It's like a wrestling facility.
Mm-hmm.
Not so much just like a rented out office building. Or
Right, which goes back to like the earlier question, like another reason why I wouldn't really like move it.
You were a guest trainer at the WWE Performance Center.
I was? Yes, twice.
And so
Did I mention that yet in this podcast?
Yeah, I think so.
I was there twice. Yes.
if they ever offered you a job, you give up the school?
Yeah, probably. I mean, I can't say I would turn down that. You know, you always have that goal to work for WWE, and I you didn't make it there as a wrestler for whatever reason, whether it was timing or my body or who fucking knows what else. But the ability to work for that company and do it as a trainer, like, yeah, I would jump on that. I can't say that I wouldn't. Like, yeah, a heartbeat. Let's see. Go train professional athletes for a living and live in Orlando, Florida, and do some of the NXT shows and events and stuff. Like, yeah, like why the fuck wouldn't I want to do something like that? Yeah, it'd be hard to leave the school and leave everything I have up here and friends and whatnot, but it just, you know, like starting over down there. But yeah, that type of opportunity, I would jump all over.
You'd be fucking like a bat out of hell. We wouldn't even see you. It wouldn't even be a bye.
Just like Meatloaf, bat out of hell.
Would you give up the school or would you shut it down?
I wouldn't shut it down. No, I wouldn't like pack it up and fucking sell everything in there. No, I would sell it to somebody or give it up or something along those lines. Yeah. 100%.
Have you had anyone in mind if you ever thought about that, like the person staring across from you?
What, Tarzan? You're interested in the school? No, I mean, I've talked to you about like training and stuff, obviously, and like why I thought you were a great trainer. Being one of my students in the beginning and knowing exactly how I want to do things. And when you're there and you're engaged, it's the same thing. Like I see it and it's great. Like you'd be awesome. Obviously, my silent partner in Chaotic would probably want something to do with it as well. Mm-hmm. So it'd be something, and I bet you my trainer on Tuesdays would probably want something to do with it as well too. So I think it'd be one of those things where I'd have to discuss and figure out what I wanted to do and see who was or wasn't interested and kind of go from there.
All right, Julian, you know what time it is?
I do, sir.
Oh, brother.
It's time for
The Fantastic Four.
Fantastic Four!
Wow, you guys did that in unison. That was nice.
All right, so the Fantastic Four, because I know you're an avid listener, Brian Fury.
I am.
The Fantastic Four is where we ask the same 4 questions, and we're going to start with question 1. Question 1 is simple. As a pro wrestling trainer, what would you say that you are most proud of?
I'm proud of the accomplishments of my students and helping people live out their dreams. When people have their first match and they come talk to me and they're emotional, just recently, DL Hurst at the last Chaotic show, he was very emotional after being able to win the New England title after coming back from his leg injury, and people moving on to bigger and better things, and and just knowing that I played a part in people living out something that they want to do since they were a child and helping them get that goal is it's a big thing, and that's easily what I'm most proud of.
All right, now exclusively in regards to the New England Pro Wrestling Academy,
Yes.
what would you say, if any, is your biggest regret?
I mean, it's hard to say. Giving Tex 100 chances, maybe. I guess maybe things now, back to kind of what we were talking about, being maybe a little more lax, maybe. But I don't know if that's. It's hard. I don't know if that's a regret or what it is. Just not being a better businessman, I guess you could say, and promoting things more. It's stuff like that. As far as the training aspect goes, I don't necessarily regret too much because, again, students seem to react well and do well and have progressed well. So it's more on business end of things and stuff like that. Now here it comes. Number 3.
Yeah, you know what's coming, pal. All right, so question 3.
Eyes light up.
Question 3 is my favorite, as always. Out of your entire dealings of owning a pro wrestling school, who would you say you hate the most, and will you name them? Or just strongly dislike, excuse me.
I mean, just in regards to owning a wrestling school, I don't really think...
Well, you can name anyone if you want.
Yeah, realistically, you can name anyone in the wrestling business. You've been around for quite some time, so you've got a lot of run-ins.
We're loose with that rule.
If you asked me this question 10 years ago,
oh, you would have,
or even 15 years ago, it would probably would have been a long list of people. As I've gotten older and wiser, and I think both of you know my wife Nikki really well. She's really just helped me kind of see. This will sound weird, but see the brighter side of things, but just not hold on to a lot of animosity and things like that. Right now, I don't think there's anybody that I really hate.
Would you say strongly dislike? Because
it's got to be someone.
I'll tell you.
I don't care enough about what other people are doing or what other people have or haven't said to hang on to any sort of animosity or hatred. Again, if you asked me years ago, what was that fucking guy from the Pride there? Dan
Freitas?
Dan Freitas, yeah, hated him.
Why?
Hated his guts. And I fucking said something to him at a show once because he was always talking shit about me. This is funny to look back on. Years ago, he was fucking talking to everybody about me because I didn't take wrestling serious enough. I was too fucking jokey jokester and fucking goofing around in locker rooms and whatever else. And he didn't think I respected the business, things along those lines. And so I remember Steve you can't fucking let him say this stuff. You got to say something to him. So I did say something to him at the next fucking show I saw him at, and he was fucking no, it's not what I meant, but you like to goof around a lot, and so yeah, fuck that kid back in the day. But yeah, as of right now, I don't care. I'm sure people will say stuff about me, and I just fucking whatever. I'm like a duck; it rolls off my back, Tarzan.
A wayward duck, or
No, it's only one wayward duck. We know who that is.
All right, I'm not going to let this question sleep because I got to get something out of you.
Here we go.
Oh, boy.
So you don't strongly dislike anyone because you don't care. You don't really hate anyone. I can agree with you there. There's no sense in hating anyone. We got one life to live. If you had to be put in a room with someone and you didn't want to be in the room with that one person, there's got to be someone in the wrestling business that they're like, oh, this person, and you have to be stuck in a room with them for a little bit. And you're just like, fuck that. Just pick one.
I'm even just when you're saying that and trying to think, there's nobody that immediately pops to mind. There's nothing that's jumping out at me. Maybe there'd be some people where things would be awkward or uncomfortable or weird, but nothing that I'd be like, nope, fuck that. Because yeah, there's nobody that jumps to my head as far as that goes.
Brian Fury has matured, ladies and
well,
gentlemen.
we'll settle for Tex.
Trying to. Texting Dan Freitas.
All right, question 4. What does the future hold for the Firebrand Brian Fury?
And the New England Pro Wrestling Academy.
Yes, well, in 5 years, I will be celebrating the 5th anniversary of you asking me this question. That's a little Mitch Hedberg joke there.
Took Tarzan a second to grab that one.
I love getting the belly laugh out of Tarzan. Well, in the immediate future, like I said earlier, fucking new paint job and try to clean up that place and upgrade the rings a little bit more. But as far as the future, 5 years or however long it may be, the school that's my baby, and it's, I guess you could say it's my first baby, my first child. It's the one, parents don't pick kids they like the most, but that's, they all like their first one the most, I think. And that one is my first, seeing people progress and move on to bigger and better things is really awesome and rewarding. And that's my goal, is to build and make the New England Pro Wrestling Academy the place to train. I already think that it is, but now I want the rest of the world and everybody else to kind of view that and see that as well. I can't foresee me ever, as of right now, 40 years old, I can't foresee me ever getting rid of that place unless something completely out of the blue happened and I had to leave or move. But that is my, for lack of a better term, wink, wink, my life's work. The school is the thing that I'm the most proud of, even more so than a lot of stuff that I did in the wrestling business.
All right. Well, it's been a pleasure to have you on this episode.
Hope so.
This is plug time. Where can people find Brian Fury on social media?
Well, you can find the New England Pro Wrestling Academy on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook at NE Pro Wrestling. Also, the website is www.neprowrestling.com. I'm on Facebook, Brian Fury, Instagram and Twitter, xbrianxfuryx, and yeah, I'm all over the place. I wish I didn't have social media anymore, but this wrestling business keeps me on it. So I just find myself staring at my phone way more than I would like to throughout the day.
All right, and also, as well as social media, plug any chaotic shows or any fantasy camps coming up in the New England Pro Wrestling.
Next chaotic show is September the 20th in Woburn, Massachusetts. This is actually going to be a bittersweet show there. It's going to be our final show in Woburn for quite some time. We got word the day before Summer Chaos that they are tearing it down and completely renovating the whole place, and so we're not going to be able to get back in there until maybe the end of summer next year, so a year, and that's kind of tough pill to swallow because that's been our home for the longest time. The next show after the 20th is October the 11th, and that is back in Lowell, Massachusetts. So those are the next two coming chaotic shows. The next fantasy camp will be in February sometime, usually the last weekend in February. And yeah, that's that.
All right. Well, I do genuinely want to thank you for being on the show.
I'm glad it's a genuine thank you.
As opposed to?
Well, despite what some people think out there, we do actually really appreciate everybody who is willing to come on our show and have a conversation with us. The show would not exist without our guests.
And I feel like you had said in the beginning of your podcast that you were slightly nervous. And I feel like a lot of people are nervous when they go to sit down with us because they feel we're going to put them on the spot and, put them in an uncomfortable situation. But
this is not a got you moment.
Exactly. See? He listens.
Julian, plug our social media.
I don't know what it is. I'm kidding. So you can find Truth, Justice, and the New England Pro Wrestling Way on Facebook. It is a Facebook like page. Go ahead, stop by, give us a like. You can find us on Twitter at Pro Wrestling Way. And you can find us on any major podcasting app. Download, subscribe, give us a rating, give us some feedback so we can improve this podcast to be a better listening experience for you.
We generally want your feedback. There's that word again, genuinely. Guests you'd like to see, guests you didn't like, questions you'd like asked, topics you'd like asked. Were we too nice to Brian? Were we too mean to Brian? We want to hear your input. As always, please, go ahead. Give us a comment. Give us a like. We definitely want to hear from you.
I'll be honest, ladies and gentlemen. I am the operator of the Facebook for Truth, Justice, and New England Pro Wrestling Way, and I'll try to say that a little smoother next time. I'm a little lazy, and I don't tend to be as active as I'd like to be, so I'm going to try and get my partner here to help me out, and we're going to try and start plugging shows. We're going to try to reach out to other shows, so any other shows or promoters listening, send us your dates, send us anything you can. We will help promote your shows on our websites, and do everything we can to be a part of the New England Pro Wrestling scene.
Support New England Pro Wrestling, whether it's the WWE at TD Garden, Ring of Honor, or your local independent wrestling show.
Like Chaotic Wrestling?
Perfect. Support New England Professional Wrestling.
It's the best. New England rules.
And we want to thank you all again, and join us again next time for another episode of Truth, Justice, and the New England Pro Wrestling Way.